Just a quick disclaimer. I started out really enjoying this process, and over the course of the week that it took to film this video, I fell off quite a bit. I do start to get a bit more critical as the video goes on. That happens around like the 30-ish minute mark, 40-ish minute mark. I didn't, you'll see. If you watch it, you'll see. But I will say that like loved the book, and I'll leave it at that. All right. Enjoy. Bye. Howdy folks, my name is Frank. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things bookish. So today I'm going to be doing a video that I have been really looking forward to. This is something that I have been thinking about doing for quite some time. And I think now that it's spring, it just feels like the right time to set out on a journey, okay? So I'm going to be reading J.R.R Tolkien's The Hobbit, and then I'm going to watch all 3 of the movies. I have the entire box set on Blu-ray because I do plan on doing this with the Lord of the Rings trilogy as well. So yeah, I've only seen the Hobbit movies once each, and that was years ago, kind of around the time they came out, maybe even sometime afterward because I don't go to the movies. And I've only seen the Lord of the Rings movies once as well. They weren't even the extended versions, they were just like the standard ones. So basically what I'm trying to say is I don't know anything about Middle Earth. I know the general stuff, right? Orcs, and I know that Viggo Morgenstein broke his toe in that one scene, and Sauron is bad, right? Like I know that stuff. But as for anything actually in depth, I'm not aware yet. So I'm actually super excited to make this video. My plan is I'm probably going to read the book, do maybe a check-in video like halfway through, and then another check-in at the end of reading the book, and then watch the movies. And then at the end of the video, just kind of like compare and contrast the two, talk about the differences, things I liked in, each respective piece of media. And yeah, I'm so excited to do this. You have no idea how much I've been wanting to do this. With all of that being said, because I'm so brand new to this universe, I recognize that the Tolkien fandom is pretty extensive. There are people that study these books like religiously, that know so many fun facts about the author and about the world. And I know that Tolkien basically created an entire language and then translated it to these books. Crazy. I know that. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is if you are part of the Tolkien fandom and you are one of those people that just knows mountains and mountains of different and various facts, and you see that I might say something that is inconsistent or incorrect, I don't mind being corrected. Absolutely, please let me know. But like, remember, I am new. I'm so new to this. So yeah, I will see you guys at the 50% mark. So as you can see, I have a new mic, which means that I can use both of my hands to talk now. Very exciting. I'm checking in at the 46% mark. Can you see that? My mic. Anyway, yeah, so I'm checking in at the 46% mark. The reason why I didn't decide to read the next chapter and get it closer to the 50% mark is because I just got to the point where Bilbo and the dwarves are actually entering Mirkwood Forest, and Gandalf has actually just left them. So I figured shit might be popping off really soon. Not that it hasn't. Like, obviously, they've gone through a few things between the trolls and then the goblins in the cave and everything like that. Like, obviously, they've already run into some issues. But I feel like entering Mirkwood Forest is a really important moment in this book. I have a feeling. So I decided I would do a check-in before we get to that point. And I'm going to leave most of my notes for towards the end of the video because I want to use those notes to more so compare and contrast to the actual movies. But basically, a couple things I've noted. One, I'm not sure why I didn't think it was going to have as much humor in it as it does. This is genuinely so much funnier than I thought it was going to be, and I'm very happy about that. Gandalf is quite literally a sassy king. Love him down. He is so funny. There is a specific quote that happens in chapter 4 titled Overhill and Underhill, and Thorin is basically like freaking out because they're trapped in this terrible thunderstorm and they're getting rained on, and there's stone giants like throwing boulders and crap at each other. And Thorin is like, this will not do. This is not good. We need to get the heck out of here. Like, why are we? And Gandalf literally says, he's like, well, if you know of anywhere better, take us there. Because seriously, what are you talking? Like, obviously, I don't know. I thought that was so funny. And then that earlier in chapter 1, when Gandalf kind of shows up at Bilbo's house, and Bilbo's like, oh, good morning. And Gandalf is like, are you saying it is a good morning? Are you wishing me a good morning? Are you saying it's a morning to be good on? Like, and Bilbo's like, all of them. Like, I don't know. I think Gandalf is hilarious. I don't know why I wasn't expecting that, but it's been delightful to read.
I'll take the wizard.
Okay.
So there's that. And then the second thing is that this does read it's one of those books where I don't think a child could read it because there's a lot of language and vocabulary in here that I don't think most children would be able to understand. But this is absolutely a story that you could read to kids. This is like an all ages kind of book. And I figured that would be the case mostly because if I remember correctly from the lore that I've picked up just like being alive, not being a part of the Tolkien fandom, is that he used to say this as like a bedtime story to his son and then eventually turned it into a book, right? That's what The Hobbit is, I'm pretty sure. It reads like a children's story in the sense that this is full of whimsy and adventure and magic. And it's just such a beautiful fantasy story. I feel so immersed in this world. And I think Tolkien has done a fantastic job breaking up the world building and the exposition in this, because one of the reasons why I've stepped away from fantasy is mostly because authors do this thing. They're info dumping while they're trying to do the world building, describing all of the trees and the buildings and this and the that. And that tends to annoy me because I don't like huge blocks of world building like that. It's just not something I enjoy reading. And so I understand that that's kind of inherently a part of fantasy. But I do think that Tolkien does a phenomenal job at kind of, he'll give a few sentences about the world building and immersing us in all of the nearby mountains and rivers and creeks and describing the types of trees and all of this while simultaneously letting us know kind of how Bilbo feels about it. So it's broken up with a little bit more of like character building and development and just like a bit of humor and things like that. So I'm really enjoying that. There is one instance that I kind of was scratching my head at. Something about me as a reader, I don't love coincidences. Like I don't enjoy when authors are like, and here's this coincidence that was kind of unnecessary and probably could have been written a different way. And here's my thought on that. It happens in chapter 2 titled Roast Mutton. And this is where they come across the three trolls whose names were William, Bert, and Tom, I believe. And after they get turned to stone, they go searching for their troll cave where they probably have food. And they can't get in. And Bilbo is like, oh, I found this key. And it's like, oh, isn't it a lucky coincidence that it fell out of one of their pockets before they turned to stone, right? And so part of me is thinking this because Tolkien was smart enough and creative enough that he quite literally wrote an entire language, created an entire language and this whole universe, and then translated it into these books. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. That actually might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it all went down. So I have a hard time believing that this coincidence doesn't amount to anything. Like, my thought process is that maybe Gandalf kind of made it happen somehow, some way. Like maybe he got the key out of the pocket and then dropped it on the ground so that Bilbo would find it. I don't know, something like that. Because I feel like one, Gandalf is really trying to help Bilbo out a lot in this book. And two, Bilbo is trying to prove himself. Obviously, he's trying to prove that even though he's not really a burglar, that he deserves to be on this adventure and that he's not just dead weight. And he does this a few times throughout the book so far. And I think that's great. I have no issue with that. So, like, part of me is thinking that maybe Gandalf was trying to help him out in some way. Now, if it does turn out that it's just a coincidence, then I'm cool with that. I'm fine with that because I'm enjoying this book so much right now that a coincidence like that isn't going to ruin it for me. I think maybe if I wasn't liking it as much as I am, I might have been a little bit harsher about this. So yeah. The other thing is when they go to when the Eagles drop them off on that huge rock. Gonna climb a mountain, gonna soar a flag, gonna fly on an eagle. And they end up going to Bjorn's house. Bjorn is hilarious. He was so funny. And I'm like the fact that he was literally giddy as hell when he found out that they had actually done all the things they said they'd done when they were explaining how they got to his house and the journey they'd been on up until that point. And he was a little bit skeptical about it naturally, right? And then he goes to find out for himself and he comes back and he's happy as hell. And he's like, look what I've got. And he literally has a decapitated freaking goblin head and this like warg pelt, just like, oh, look at me. Look what I did.
Did I do that?
I don't know. I thought that was hilarious. I love Bjorn. I love that he's a vegetarian king. I love that he is like, I keep saying the word king. They're not kings. I should clarify that if you haven't read the book. I'm saying king as in, yes, king. But also, if you haven't read the book, I feel like you should read the book before you watch this. Yeah, those are my thoughts and some of my notes so far at the 46-ish% mark, 50-ish%, whatever it is, whatever that is. Moving on. I'll see you guys again at the end of the book. Bye. Hey guys, so here I am. I have officially read The Hobbit. Woo! Very exciting. I know. So I just wanted to get into my closing thoughts before I started watching the movies to compare the two. And obviously, I loved it. I mean, I'm sure you could tell at the 50% mark that I was really enjoying it up until that point. And I ended up being correct in my assumption that the dwarves and Bilbo entering Mirkwood Forest was going to be a turning point in the book. That is kind of the part where Bilbo began to become really confident in himself and he discovered this inner courage and bravery that hadn't really been super present in himself before that point. So I think him fighting off the spiders and rescuing the dwarves was really a huge turning point in this book for Bilbo, and I really enjoyed that. I will say that there is a bit at the end where I did cry. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. But it was sad. And I don't know. I just had a lot of feels about that. I did. I'm so super excited that Bjorn saved the day. My dude, that's my guy, honestly. I loved Bjorn so much. And I'm excited to see if he's actually part of the movies. I don't remember a bear man at all in the movies. So I mean, again, I saw them once years ago, so he very well could be, but yeah, I'm not sure. So anyway, moral of the story is I'm excited to get into the movies and to kind of compare the two. Now, I will say it is very rare for me to have high expectations for a book and for that book to actually meet my expectations. Normally, when I go into a book and I'm already thinking very highly of it, I do get disappointed to some extent. I didn't really have that issue with this book. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. I got everything out of this book that I was hoping I would. And I loved not only the journey itself and the characters and everything, but I did like the actual language that Tolkien used to write this book. I felt like it felt very old timey. It felt very folky. Like it had that vibe to it. So I really enjoyed that. With all of that being said, I do have a critique, and I'm pretty sure this is a sensitive spot for the fandom, so forgive me in advance. This is just rumblings that I've heard, that I've seen in my passing by on the internet, so I don't know too much about it. But I will say, in the entirety of this book, there is not a single female character at all. Not a single one. And I found that very peculiar. Like, it kind of astounded me that it was more realistic to live in a world where there's hobbits and dwarves and elves and goblins than there are women. Like, it was just very strange to me. I'm sure Tolkien had a reason for it. I don't know if maybe he would have felt kind of like obligated to insert a romantic subplot if he had included a female character or something. Normally, I will do research on an author before I read their books to see if I want to read their books. Whereas I knew I wanted to read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and so I didn't want to sway my opinion of the source material or anything like that before going into it by reading up about the author first. So I figured I would do that at the end. So if you have any links, any websites, blogs, even any book recommendations that you have about Tolkien and about his process in writing The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or just kind of what kind of person he was, feel free to drop that in the comments because I will be doing research about him later. But what I'm trying to get at is I'm sure there was a reason. I'm not sure if I will think that it was justified or if I will think that it was a good reason to not include a single female character because we have, like, I mean, dude, there's 13 dwarves in here. You're telling me that we can have Thorin, we can have Bomber, Bifer, Bofer, Dwalin, Ballin, fucking Nori, Ori, and Dory, Gloin, and Oin, and Philly, and Killy, and we can have all these dwarves, and you couldn't have included just a single female dwarf? Like, I don't know. I just thought it was weird. I was reading the whole time I'm reading. I'm like, where are all the women at? Like, what are they? What's happening? And I get it's a story about camaraderie and about friendship and about, a journey of self-discovery and all that. And I understand. I do. But I just still fail to see how including a woman would have changed any of that. Anyway, whatever. That's my only critique. That's the only thing I was reading through and I'm like, this is so strange. I'm literally reading about gigantic talking eagles and that's somehow more plausible to have in this book than a fucking female character? Like, what? Anyway, don't come for me. That's literally just my thought process. Those are my feelings on it. That's just what I felt. Okay. So that was my only major critique of this book. Otherwise, I really did love it. I really did. I was kicking my feetsies. I was like, I really did thoroughly enjoy reading this. I'm excited to watch the movies and see how they turned this book into 3 separate movies. Because as far as I understand, each of those movies is like 3 hours long. So I'm kind of intrigued. I'm ready to see what happens. I have brief memories of the movies specifically. I believe it's The Desolation of Smaug. Like, that's the movie that I have in my head the most. I don't really remember the other two all that much. So I am excited to get to that, and then I will check back in after the first movie, kind of give my thoughts, and then we'll just keep on going till I finish the third movie. So yeah, I'll see you guys soon.
I may not have told you all of it. I'm old now, Frodo. What really happened?
What really happened?
In a land far away to the east, the like of which you will not find in the...
Offense to your burglar. He had the mouse to play for time. And the rest of you thought of that. Saruman believes that it is only great power that can hold evil in check. But that is not what I found. I found it as the small things, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keeps the darkness at bay. Simple acts of kindness and love.
Ooh, I just saw the lovely mountain. Uh-oh, what is this? It's smoke. Oh shit. Dun dun dun.
So as you could tell from my previous clips, you could probably guess that I did enjoy watching The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. I did really think that as a film in and of itself, it was all right. Like you could tell that there was just a lot that wasn't finished. Like as a standalone, it doesn't really hold up very well, but I think because I have read the book and I know that there's more going on, and even if you hadn't read the book, you know that this is a trilogy. So you understand that it's part of a set kind of thing. So, with all of that being said, there were some changes that were made. Had a lot more changes than I thought there were going to be. I wasn't exactly expecting like a one-to-one comparison for the book, obviously, but I still was surprised to see how much was actually changed or just how much lore was pulled directly from the Silmarillion or from Lord of the Rings. Now, I have not read the Silmarillion and I cannot say that I plan on reading that in the near future. Eventually, I will get to it, but it is just kind of one of those things that I'm okay with not reading it for now. I just want to focus on The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy as it is. So we find out Thranduil's name in The Hobbit in the book. It is actually just, he's just referred to as the Elven King or the King of the Elves or the King of the Wood Elves, right? He doesn't ever have a name in the book. And I was actually keeping an eye out for it. I wanted to make sure that that was correct because like I said, I've seen the movie. So obviously I knew that Lee Pace's character had a name. Thranduil, I guess is what it's called. I'm guessing that came straight from the Silmarillion. I don't know. So anyway, so the one thing that I wasn't particularly a fan of is how both the elves so far and the dwarves have been portrayed in the movie. I feel like in the book, elves are a lot more whimsical and musical and just kind of poking fun at the dwarves, and they're a little bit silly and I really enjoyed that. Whereas in the movie, at least the brief glimpse that we get, even Elrond, they're so stoic and very just like serious. So I'm not sure I loved that so much. I guess it's supposed to be because they're like ethereal, eternal, immortal beings or something. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't super love that. And then even the dwarves, they like in the book, Thorin is a little bit stubborn and he does kind of poke jabs at Bilbo a little bit. But for the most part, he doesn't really get that way. Like the stubbornness doesn't really show up in Thorin's character until the very end when they're hiding out in the mountain. Whereas in the movie, he is so much more like dead serious about stuff. Like he is a lot, and he's so mean to Bilbo. I mean, like I don't know. I mean, Thorin's kind of like, I was like, why is he kind of, But also, why are you being mean to my guy? Why are you being mean to Bilbo? He's literally just there to help you guys out. Like, yeah, you promise him gold, but you know, you're being kind of a dick. And eventually, at the end of the movie, they do kind of have that like bro moment where they give themselves a bro hug, and that was cute. I liked it, but I don't know. Yeah, the portrayal of the dwarves is they're just so much more gruff and ill-mannered than they are in the books. Like in the books, like respect and like having manners and stuff, like that's like a huge thing. Like even when they're getting to Rivendell in the book, obviously, even though dwarves and elves have a little beef going on, which again is not ever explicitly explained in the books. It's just kind of something that's mentioned casually, like, oh yeah, dwarves don't really like elves, but you'd be a fool not to, or whatever. So yeah, that, and then like obviously in the movie, there's that huge opening flashback scene where we are seeing Smaug attack the Lonely Mountain, attack Erebor, and all the dwarves are fleeing, and Thorin is like reaching out for help to Thranduil, but Thranduil's a cunt, and he decides that he just doesn't want to risk the lives of his men and whatever else. So there's like real history and backstory in the movie. I don't know, again, that could be pulled from the Silmarillion or from Lord of the Rings or something. I'm not sure. But as far as what is told in The Hobbit, that is never explicitly stated, like why they have that kind of beef. So then the other thing is, aside from just the portrayal of the elves and the dwarves in the movie, I was really lost on the whole like orc thing that was going on, because in The Hobbit, they're goblins. The word goblins is what is used. There is an author's note at the beginning of the book that talks about the word orc and discusses how it is not an English word, and it refers to like goblin-like creatures or hobgoblins. And so when I was reading The Hobbit, I kind of like, I was like, okay, right. You're using, like, orc was not used in the version of The Hobbit that I read at all, they used the word goblin. So I'm like, okay, I'm not sure why that was in the author's note. And then a note, an appendices or some appendices or whatever it's called. Oh, I don't know the word. But anyway, at the end of The Hobbit, it's like an index or something that talks about Azog the Defiler, and he was a goblin at the Battle of Moria. So as far as I understood, Azog was a goblin. So then we get to the movie, and Azog the Defiler is a white orc. And I'm like, hold on, wait. So orcs are goblins, right? And then we get to the point in the first movie where they get trapped by goblins. And I'm like, wait a second. So goblins and orcs are different? They're different things? So, of course, me being the person that I am, I know I said I was going to wait till the end to do some research and stuff, but I really did need this question answered. So what I realized, I ended up discovering that originally when Tolkien wrote The Hobbit, he did use the word goblins. And as time went by, because apparently he did a lot of rewrites, he changed a lot of the lore as he, because he wrote this over the course of like 20 years or something like that, 10 years, something crazy like that. So point is that he was using the word goblin, apparently he was like a very devout Catholic. So he was having a huge ethical crisis and moral crisis about this idea of our heroes killing goblins if they had the capacity to be good, because if they were their own moral agents, and that meant that they had souls and that killing them was a sin. So I guess Tolkien just had like a really difficult time coping with that idea. So he changed the word to orc, which is supposed to be, it's from a different language, I think. And it's something that is like a spirit of evil or something like that. Anyway, point is that he was using the word goblin, didn't like that for ethical reasons, changed it to orc, and that for the sake of, like, the fandom, just for the sake of clarity, has designated goblin to The Hobbit and orcs to Lord of the Rings, even though it's kind of referring to the same creatures, right? But then in the movie, An Unexpected Journey, orcs and goblins are different things. So that, I don't think that actually clarified anything. I mean, I get it. I think you probably get it. You get what I'm talking about, right? Like they're the same thing in the universe of Middle Earth, but we now use the word orc, but also goblins are different in the movies. Anyway, that's how I'm going to leave it. It did get clarified. Like, to me, after I read this information, I kind of understood what was happening, but I just thought it was strange that whoever, like, the movies, they have decided to have both orcs and goblins. So something that I really, really liked in the movie is that they pull scenes directly from the book. Like, so specifically, they pull the scene with Bilbo and Gandalf saying good morning. I already referenced that a little bit earlier in this video. They pretty much take the dialogue word for word straight from the book. So I loved that. Super loved that. They do that again with the riddle game that Bilbo plays with Gollum. So they use a lot of the riddles that they use in the riddle game. I can't remember if it was all of them or not, but like they take that dialogue straight from the book. Loved that. That scene was pretty much almost, not entirely, but it was almost shot for shot how it was in the book. And I really liked that. I did. And then pretty much everything else was different. I mean, the fact that there were orcs, like a pack of orcs hunting down Thorin and the dwarves and everything throughout the movie just completely changed the atmosphere, which again, I get. This is a movie adaptation. You want things to be tense. You want there to be a lot of cinematic like tension and, good guys, bad guys, clear right off the bat. Blah, 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 blah. So like, I understand that, especially because I think it will make a lot of sense because the third movie is, I'm pretty sure it's titled The Battle of the Five Armies, right? So we all know what happens in the book. So I'm enjoying the fact that Azog is kind of like, it's being led up to in the final movie. I think that's going to be cool. But yeah, the eagles, they are giant in the movie, but they don't talk. They talk in the book. I kind of wish they had made the eagles talk, man. I wish they had made the eagles talk. I think that would have been really cool.
Rock flag and eagle.
Now, something that was, I don't want to say it was frustrating for me, but it was definitely one of those things where I was like, wait a second, hold up. Because in the movie, first of all, Gandalf has to trick the dwarves into getting into Rivendell because the dwarves are so adamantly anti-elf. It's like crazy. Like, Thorin, like, be serious for a second. You're not being a very good leader right now. You're not being you're just a stubborn dick. So anyway, so they get to Rivendell and Galadriel's in the movie. Saruman is in the movie. She's calling Gandalf Mithrandir, and I'm like, wait a second. This is not in the book, and that's fine, right? But again, newbie, nobody, don't know nothing about nothing. So I'm sitting here, I'm just fucking lost. I'm like, hold on, who is Galadriel? Because I mean, I know who Galadriel is from the Lord of the Rings movies. I have an idea of who she's obviously an elven queen, god, I don't know, something like that. I love Cate Blanchett though, super hot, super. excellent casting for this character. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is they are having this whole council meeting, basically talking about, oh, why are you taking these dwarves on this journey, and why would you get their hopes up and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, first of all, Saruman is a dick, even in this movie. Because again, it's spoiled. I know that he's in cahoots with Sauron. All right, but you see it in the movie that he's very much like, don't worry about it, Gandalf. Why are you stressing? You're making a big deal out of nothing. Blah blah blah. Like, you can clearly tell this man has ulterior motives and stuff. So, oh, one of my notes is, why is Thorin kind of, and he is. All right, I know I just finished talking about how stubborn and how mean and stuff he is, but I kind of like that. Anyway, that's not the point. I just thought it was funny. I also had this clip that happens in the movie but doesn't happen in the book, where Gandalf said he had the nose to play for time.
He had the nous to play for time.
No, tonusu, eche tonusu, that's a Greek word. Nous, N-O-U-S, that's a Greek word. It means your attention, your brain, your actually I can't think of the literal translation. Tonusu mori. Anyway. So I thought that was fun. Radagast, I think he's mentioned in passing in the book. He is like a straight up player in this movie. By player, I mean like a player on the board. Like, he's like in the shit. Like, there's like some cryptic stuff going on, which I kind of liked because it does give more of that backstory of why Gandalf eventually, I'm assuming it's going to be the same, where that backstory of why Gandalf has to leave the dwarves and Bilbo when they enter Mirkwood Forest so that he can go fight off the necromancer with some of the other wizards. And that does get explained at the end of The Hobbit. It's like, again, Bilbo overhears Gandalf explaining it to Elrond, and that's kind of like, we just get a little quick blip about it. So I'm guessing that Radagast in the movie is kind of like setting up the situation so that they can all go fight the necromancer together, which I am assuming is Sauron. I even have that in my notes about the book, is that I'm like, they keep calling him the necromancer. I'm like, are they talking about Sauron? Is that what the necromancer is? But yeah, there's so much lore that is in the movie that is just not in the book at all. I got Ungoliant or something, Dol Guldur. Don't know what any of these places are, what these things are. Oh yeah, something that I noted, I just wasn't loving the orc makeup CGI in this movie. I feel like they were way cooler in the Lord of the Rings movies, if I remember correctly. Like, something about it is like okay, Azog is okay, his isn't too bad, but the other orcs look really weird, and I just remember them being way scarier in a cool way in the Lord of the Rings movies. But again, I'll get to that when I actually read the book and when I do this kind of video for the trilogy as well. But yeah, I don't know, I wasn't like loving the orc makeup. The goblins, on the other hand, not sure what the hell was going on with that, but I was loving whatever business this was, whatever the Goblin King had going on in this here situation. I got a little bit of it going on myself. I was into that. I was like, that is disgusting and gross and weird, in a like boily, pus, pimply kind of way. I was loving it. I was like, okay. Was the CGI the absolute best in the world? No, I don't think so. But again, I think these movies came out like a decade ago at this point. So, fuck me, man. I don't know. It could have been good for the time. Either way, I was really liking whatever was going on with the goblins. I thought they were really creepy and weird looking, unlike the orcs in this movie. So yeah, again, my other note is about Galadriel. Although she was not in the book, I was very much happy to see Cate Blanchett bless my screen. Love her. Yeah, so I just got to this point. They do use the name Sauron to refer to the necromancer in the book, or in the movie, excuse me. So yeah, so it is the same guy. The other thing I really liked, something they changed in the movie, was that the ponies got lost long before they ever made it to the cave where the goblins took them, right? And I liked that because part of me in the book, like while I was reading the book, part of me was thinking, like, how the hell did they get these ponies all the way up the cliffside there? Like, even if it, like, that just seems like a really tight squeeze. And so when what happened in the movie, their ponies were long gone by the time they get to the thunderstorm situation. I was really sad to see that Gandalf, they had already left Gandalf in Rivendell in the movie. And so he wasn't there. So it wasn't that funny quote that I had earlier where it was like, well, if you know of anywhere better, take us there. Like, I really wish that had been in the movie, but it was not. That's okay. So the last thing that I really want to get into is something that I really liked about the movies and how they changed things, because a lot of the changes I was like, okay, whatever. But something that I really did enjoy was that they removed all of the coincidences that had happened up until that point. So one example, like I said, is that key situation after they turned the trolls to stone. And what I really liked about that was instead of that, they substituted it so that Bilbo was the one who outsmarted the trolls, not Gandalf. Like Gandalf does it in the book, but Bilbo does it in the movie. So there's no need for him to kind of prove himself by finding the key. And so I'm really glad that they removed the need for the key altogether, and they just found the trolls hideout and they didn't need a key to get in. I liked that they removed that. The other coincidence that they took out that I actually really loved was that when the orcs, in the book it's the goblins, but when the orcs and the wargs have our group or company trapped on the trees, they've like climbed the trees and they're getting knocked over and they're gonna fall off the cliff or burn alive and all this other stuff in the movie. What happens in the book is that the eagles find them coincidentally. The eagles are just they happen to be flying by at this moment. They see what's going on. They don't like goblins, so they end up going down and helping everybody. And the eagles and Gandalf already have some like friendship or something like that. Like they have some good history. So the eagles go down and help after coincidentally flying by. Whereas in the movie, Gandalf sends a little, I think it was like a moth. It might have been a butterfly, but it looked like a moth. And he like speaks to it and he sends it off, right? And presumably it goes to find the eagles to let them know what's going on. So the eagles show up to rescue everybody. And I really liked that. I thought that was great because part of my thing, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a huge fan of coincidences. It's not my favorite thing when I'm reading a book. And I think that it was beautifully executed in the movie, like to remove these coincidences, because in movies you can't really super rely on coincidences the way that you can, like authors can sometimes lean on them in a book. And so I was very happy to see that. I'm glad that they kind of thought that out and decided to remove those. That was something I did actually think that the movie did a little bit better than the books, just the tiniest bit. But yeah, everything else, I mean, it was fine. It ends with them being dropped off by the eagles on that rock.
To fly on an eagle.
And they can see the lonely mountain off in the distance. And I really like all the changes that were made, or most of the changes that were made for the movie, I think were appropriate because movies are a different method of storytelling. And sometimes things that can happen in books that you can take the time to have these lengthy descriptions or whatever it may be, just don't translate well onto screen. And I think that most of the changes that were made did make for a more engaging and interesting movie. But as far as a book adaptation goes, it wasn't terrible. Like, I think it was pretty good so far. It's all right, okay? Like, I'm not gonna say it's the best thing ever, but I will say I think a lot of the sentiment was taken on screen. I think a lot of what the book was trying to get at, a lot of the feelings that we as the audience are supposed to have for Bilbo and other characters and stuff, I think that does get carried onto the screen. And I think when you're making a movie adaptation of a book, that's probably the most important thing, is that you might be changing certain things or changing the way the story is told in a certain way, but you want to keep the general like atmosphere and sentiment kind of the same. At least that's what I think when we're talking movie adaptations. Anyway, I am going to be watching the second one tonight. I will probably take you along, maybe film a couple of my favorite moments or whatever it is, like I did with the first one. And I will see you guys. Well, for you, it's probably going to be in the next frame, but for me, it'll be probably tomorrow or something. So anyway, bye.
Ooh, just straight up chomping on a carrot, eh? Nice. Is that like a reference to them being kind of like rabbits? You think? Is that Big Daddy Thorn? My man, my man. That's some fine shit. Legolas is in this one for some reason. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
A quest to reclaim a homeland and slay a dragon.
He's so pretty. Oh my god.
A more prosaic matter.
This is very much not like the book, but I don't care because Lee Pace is fucking fine.
One king to another. I will not trust Thranduil. Great king, only his word shall the end of all days be upon us. You lack all honor. I have seen how you treat your friends. We came to you once, starving, homeless, seeking your help. You turned your back. destroyed us.
I can't even believe
Bring
it.
down blood or soul. Do not talk to me of dragon fire. I know its wrath and ruin.
What?
I have faced the great serpents of the north. I warned your
What the fuck was that?
of what his greed would summon.
Can't we all just kiss and be friends?
And rot. 100 years is a mere blink in the life of an elf. I'm patient. I can wait.
Ooh, god damn! Did you see the way he said that?
100 years is a mere blink in the life of an elf. I'm patient. I can wait.
This is literally ridiculous. Are you seeing this? Why is Legolas even here?
No one else will have the
Bollocks, sire. Ram and goat sauteed in a lovely little mushroom gravy. In an ideal
We've lost the plot, folks. This is not. This is. This is so different from the actual book. It's like. Oh shit.
what have we done?
What? What?
Oh, misty eye of the mountain below.
All right. I didn't like this one. I didn't like this one. And to be honest, I've been kind of holding back a little bit from being my usual surly, rude self. Just because, if I'm being honest, I'm completely terrified of this fandom. I'm like, this is one of those fandoms where people take shit really seriously. And that's not to say that people in the fandom are all mean or anything like that, obviously. But it is one of those things where, like, I have been trying to choose my words a bit more carefully because, you know, people get really death threaty sometimes about some stuff. And so, yeah. So I didn't like this at all. Not as a movie, not as an adaptation. I thought that this was really just the whole point of this movie was just to have a million fight scenes with orcs that were completely unnecessary. And it's the fact that they weren't even in the book to begin with that makes it feel all very unjustified. It just felt like a huge waste of time. It felt like it was all filler. And I am not liking the portrayal of most of these characters. I kind of touched on that a little bit in when I was talking about the first movie. But yeah, the way that, like, one of the only things that I actually liked about this movie was, one, Lee Pace literally graced my screen. Seeing him and Thorin kind of arguing, going at it, loved it.
I can wait.
I was into that. That was like probably my favorite part of the movie. The rest of the movie was just so off. Tell me why, like, outside of Bilbo, Gandalf, and the Master of Lake Town, I felt like every character was portrayed so differently in this movie than they were in the book, and I didn't like that because I loved how they were portrayed in the book. So to see apparently his name is Beorn. I've been saying Bjorn. I'm going to keep on saying Bjorn because I like saying it like that. Anyway, so Bjorn was, first of all, why did he look like a porcupine? Can someone explain this to me? Why did a bear man skin changer look like a fucking porcupine?
Why is Azog the Defiler hunting you?
What was with that whole, I mean, you know, I know I'm not one to talk about hair, right? I know, but like, what was with that hair situation going on? Dude looked like a porcupine. Hated that. Also in the book, yes, he starts off, like, when they first meet him, he's very kind of standoffish and a little cold and everything, but he warms up to them as Gandalf is explaining the story of how they got there. So that there was none of that in the movie. They did try to do the whole introducing the dwarves like two at a time as to not overwhelm Bjorn, but I felt like it was really rushed. Like, I felt like Tolkien took more time in the book to lay that scene out, and I felt like in the movie it was really rushed. And instead of focusing on that, which I think would have been cool, we focused on a bunch of fucking orc fights that meant nothing and dick all and horrible CGI and whatever, okay? didn't like it. I didn't like that Beorn was basically like, I liked that he had some backstory and he was kind of talking about all the skin changers and now that they're lost because orcs liked to imprison them and torture them and stuff. That was cool. That was a nice addition. But outside of that, it just that whole interaction felt so rushed, especially considering that in the book it takes up some time, it takes up some space, and I would have much rather focused on that than whatever crap we got. The pacing, like when you compare, because I'm watching these back to back, right? So obviously it's hard not to compare the two movies, seeing them so close together. And if you combine these two movies, if you look at these two movies as sums of a whole, the pacing is so off. The first movie was like slower and kind of was, dragging a little bit, but it felt like there was more care taken in trying to portray the scenes from the book. Whereas in the second movie, we went entirely off the rails. I wouldn't even call, this was barely an adaptation at that point. Bard was, in the book, he's more on the dwarves' side and he's more like empathetic to their cause and kind of more like common sense when it comes to dealing with smog and the aftermath of it all and whatever else. Whereas in the Desolation of Smog, he's the naysayer. He's the one that in front of the whole town. He's like, no, you shouldn't do that because you're going to bring dragon fire upon us and whatever. And it's like, is he wrong? No. Did I like the way that Bard was being portrayed in the movie? Also, no. The Master of Lake Town, it was exaggerated from what it was in the book, but I still didn't mind that because I felt like, again, that general sentiment that we're supposed to be feeling as the audience was carried through. So I don't have too much to say about that. But yeah, I don't know. I think just ultimately, as an adaptation, I didn't like it. As a movie, I didn't really like it. I kept pausing every 20 minutes to see how much longer was in this movie. It felt like it was dragging, despite like the pace was just so sporadic. It felt rushed in some places and dragging in others, and like I didn't like this one. I'm sorry to the fandom. Okay, I know that people love these movies and love the book and everything like that. The book I liked, the second movie not so much, and it's kind of souring my interpretation of the first movie as well. Like, I'm not gonna go as far as to say as I hated either of them, but the second movie was really unenjoyable. Why is Legolas here? What is he doing here? He was very distracting as a character, even though he barely has any lines of dialogue in the second movie. It's basically us just seeing him have these insane fights with orcs and like shooting them in the face with his arrows and like there's one cool scene. There's one cool fight scene that I actually enjoyed, and I'll plug it right here. Okay, but outside of that, the barrel scene when they're leaving the elvish, when they're leaving like the elven castle or whatever it is, and they're like in the barrels going down the river, and Legolas is standing on their fucking heads and like flipping around and firing off arrows. That shit was corny, right? Can we all agree on that, or was that just me? Was I alone in that? Yeah. Outside of seeing Lee Pace's face up against my man Thorin, like I said, I wish they had kissed. Obviously, that's not ever going to happen. That was never going to happen. I know that, but like, I just can't help but make things gay, right? My life is gay. Everything's gay. Everything should be gay. And I stand by that. I think it would have been a really solid moment for me in my life if they had kissed. Finding out that Lee Pace has a boyfriend in real life probably has been the highlight of my 2026. I'm not even going to lie to you. Not even going to lie. The man is fine. And I love that for him. So anyway, that's besides the point. I actually kind of liked seeing Gandalf go off and do his thing and like what was happening in that B plot, because we don't get a lot of depth or explanation in the actual book of where he was and what he was doing. But I do think that it was a pretty solid choice to include that in the movie. It was one of the few things that I actually enjoyed. I love Gandalf anyway, so like seeing him do fucking anything is pretty entertaining to me. My one note is at least there are women in the movies. Yeah, there's Tariel. She's fine. It's cool. I'm not like, I don't feel too strongly one way or the other about her and Killy's like romantic subplot. I don't know. I was kind of really feeling like, I don't know that Tolkien would have liked it, but hey, who knows? I don't know shit about the man, so he very well could have thought it was adorable. Anyway, the other thing is, I tried to find clips of this online. Okay, I'll just insert one really quick. Legolas just fucking staring with his deep ass baby blues, just like.
Chill, Valentino. Chill with these baby blue eyes, eh?
and it kept happening in the movie, but on my screen, it was like his eyes were like neon blue. Like they were like damn near glowing in my version of the movie. When I went to go find clips of it on YouTube, they were really dulled down, but I was like, what are these horrible blue contacts? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm too lazy to replay the movie and go find clips of it on my screen. So you're just going to have to take my word for it. But yeah, and it says these movies are basically them running from orcs the whole time. I feel like I take back my words about this being an okay adaptation of the book. It's really starting to lose itself. Yes. That's basically my sentiment for the second movie, you guys. That's what I mean. There were a lot of new characters. Okay, that's fine. But again, most of this movie was just them running from orcs, fighting orcs, running again from the orcs, fighting orcs, and then like in between all of that was the actual stuff that happened in the book, and it was again not adapted in like it was not faithfully adapted in ways that it really could have been that would have still made for an entertaining movie. Something that I did like Benedict Cumberbatch's voicing of Smaug. I thought he did a pretty good job. I don't know, maybe some people might disagree, but I thought it was a pretty strong performance, to be honest with you. So that was something I liked. And then the other thing that I think was a nice addition was towards the end of the movie when the dwarves are actually fighting Smaug, because in the book that doesn't happen, but they have that whole like gold melting scene and they like pour it on Smaug. I thought that was actually pretty entertaining as opposed to in the book when Bilbo kind of like tricks Smaug a little bit. Smaug gets pissed off, flies off to Lake Town, disappears for 3 days, ends up dying, and then word gets back to the dwarves and to Bilbo, and they're like, "Oh wow, Smaug's dead. How interesting." So that was kind of very anticlimactic in the book. So to be fair, I did like that there was some kind of showdown between Thorin and Smaug. I thought that was a nice addition. All right, I'll give credit where credit is due. So yeah, I mean those are the notes I got for this movie. I don't want to get too in depth about everything I didn't like because again, I'm not trying to start beef with the Tolkien fandom, all right? So far, and I totally expected this, but so far the book is far surpassing the movies in my mind. I'm hoping that the Battle of the Five Armies is really going to redeem my opinion of the movies. Maybe once I see the third one, I will feel a little bit better of it as a collection, as a saga, as a trilogy, right? But as it stands, the book is coming out way on top, way on top. There are some things that, like I said, the removal of the coincidences in the first book and then the fight scene at the end with Smaug and the dwarves, I think those were really strong additions. Outside of that, though, I could take it or leave it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. It's fine, right? Still hating the orc makeup. I don't. And then there's another one, Bullrag or something like that. Azog gets an order from Sauron to basically leave Thorin Oakenshield alone and like figure out some other shit. And so Azog talks to Bogog, I don't know, some fucking weird ass orc, man. I mean, dude was ugly as sin. He was really rough looking, and not in a fun, creepy way, but in a like, are we serious kind of way? And then, oh my god, how did I forget about it? The corpses of the dwarves that had gotten trapped inside of Erebor, inside of the castle at Erebor, and their corpses were like mummified, not even skeletons, and it was really bad. Oh my god, it was really bad. The makeup, the effects, the whatever they were, it was bad. I was looking at them, I'm like, are we serious, people? Is this a joke? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be too harsh, but it's like I imagine that the budget for these films was absolutely insane. So like you couldn't have removed one of the CGI orc fight scenes and substituted that, like used the money from that to fucking set up some decent looking dwarf corpses. I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so I'm feeling a little bit. I'm not as optimistic about the third movie as when I originally started the process of making this video. I was hoping that I was going to love the book and that I was going to love the movies. So far, I'm really loving the book. Feeling kind of okay about the movies. Yeah, I don't want to talk too negatively about it all, but that's kind of where I'm at. Anyway, I'm gonna watch the third movie tonight. Let you know how it goes. I'll take you along for the ride as I've been doing with the last two movies, and then I will give my final thoughts about how I feel about everything. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Bye.
Slow-mo really necessary, or? into that. I'm into that. Deserved. What do you want to bet Bard saves his ass? Those contacts, man. Look at those baby blues. Έχω κολλήσει τώρα. I don't know why I'm like stuck on this, but.
I come from Mithrandir. And I will leave with him.
Yes, you will, baby.
If you try to stop me, I will destroy you.
Believe that. She just fucking obliterated that motherfucker. She didn't even take any damage. Who is Angmar? Oh, fuck. Is she God or something?
The spirit of Sauron endured.
Past is best. It remains lost.
Balin knows. Balin knows. Because he's smart like that. He's actually one of my favorite ones. Both in the book and so far in the movies. I like Balin. Balin!
What is that? Take back to the Shire. One day it'll grow. And every time I look at it, I'll remember. Remember everything that happened, the good, the bad. And I love you and I made home.
Now kiss. Now kiss.
No blade can pierce it.
That looks like a sensory nightmare, to be honest with you. They're running full speed for what? They gotta be traveling for days, man. Pace yourselves. So this is basically just 2 hours of them fighting, right? Is that what this movie is? There's still an hour and 20 minutes from this point, by the way. What the hell is this movie even about? I kind of feel bad for that thing. He's getting like yanked by the eyeballs, man. Oh, fuck. This is this is like an hour-long fight sequence, by the way. We have not gotten any reprieve whatsoever. It's just bloodshed after bloodshed after bloodshed. Like, it's been relentless. I guess some people like that kind of thing, but like, dude, is Balin about to sacrifice himself? Shut the fuck up.
All right, folks, I am doing this before I go into work because hence the cup of coffee, but I could not sit on my thoughts about this movie all day. So let's get into it, shall we? I did not like the third movie at all. I felt like it was a huge waste of time. It was essentially 3 hours of just gratuitous violence. I mean, I kind of figured that was going to be the case after I got 12 minutes into the movie and Smog was already dead. And I was like, well, what the hell else is there, right? It's just the battle after this. And that's pretty much what it was. I mean, it, it was basically it was like 2 hours of violence and then an hour of just like other stuff sporadically placed through it. Mostly it was that scene with Galadriel fighting off Sauron that I have clipped earlier. And then it's like Thorin losing his mind is essentially what that hour of non-violence was filled with. So, I mean, I'm sure some people liked that. And listen, I like seeing orcs get their heads chopped off as much as the next guy. Okay, truly, I do. But I just felt like it was really unnecessary. And I'm going to go back to that pacing issue that I had in the second movie because that's exactly like this was just almost 3 hours of just relentless fighting, yelling. It was very loud. It was very overstimulating. It was just a lot going on. Truthfully, that's not my bag, man. Like that's not my thing. I take back everything I said, especially for the third movie, specifically mostly for the third movie about the sentiment of the book being accurately carried onto screen. I feel like we totally lost that. Mostly, we lost that in the second one, but we totally lost that in the third. And now I understand because in the book, Bilbo basically he gets knocked out and like loses, like misses the entire battle, and I believe he is the one narrating it, even though it's in third person. Although someone confirmed that in the comment because it's never stated who our narrator is in the book. But I'm assuming that it's Bilbo. So yeah, in the book, the Battle of the Five Armies basically just happens. Bilbo wakes up and it's done. So I understand. Like I knew that it was going to be something in the movie, obviously, but I don't know, something about just the fact that it was just like this relentless fighting. Now I think as a set, it like I can't even say that it works as a set. I think that this should have been split into two movies, each 3 hours long. Cut a lot of the orc fights, cut a lot of that out, and just like I think if they had stayed closer to the pacing of the actual book, it would have been really good. It's just like the first movie, in my opinion, was the best because one, it was the most accurate to the book, and two, it was because I enjoyed the fact that it did feel like it carried a lot of that same energy as the book did. Whereas the second one, we just started kind of going off the rails and trying to make it more of an action packed movie. And then the third one is really just straight up them fighting for hours. And there were cool moments, sure, of course. There were moments in the fight that I actually did enjoy. Bjorn comes out at the end and does his thing, even though it's like literally 20 seconds of footage. Right. But at the end of the day, I just think that the movies were so ultimately disappointing to me. And I love the book. I still stand by everything I said about the book, but the movies themselves were such a letdown. And the way that people talk about the Lord of the Rings movies and how faithfully adapted they were and how much care and love, both from like the production team and the actors and everything, went into the Lord of the Rings. I was kind of expecting to get a little bit of that in these movies as well. These just felt kind of like, dare I say, kind of like a cash grab, man. Like, did it need to be three movies? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If we had just adjusted the pacing for all three movies and instead had split them into two, like split the book into two, half and half, right? Then I think it would have been like, I think they could have been really amazing. But unfortunately, the third movie just felt so off, so exhausting to watch. It was relentless. It really was. And I didn't enjoy that. I included the clips that I liked. Also, headcanon, Thorin and Bilbo are gay for each other and together. They're like, that's headcanon. You can't tell me otherwise. Let me roll the tape.
I know that's how you must honor him, but to me he was never that. He was... To me... He was...
And then, of course, we have this scene.
I wish to part from you in friendship.
You're not going anywhere, Thorin. You're going to live.
I will take back my word and my debt to the gate. You did what only a true friend would do. Forgive me. I was too blind to see.
Right. There was that energy in the movie. where they were just, there was a connection there that felt a lot more than just a friendship. And of course, again, this is headcanon, right? So leave me the fuck alone. I already told you I make everything gay, but I mean, come on. I can't be the only one that saw the subtext there. In the book, it's not that way because, like I said, it's more of a children's story. So there isn't any romantic gleanings that you could get at all from the book unless you really, really, really tried. Because there is that moment at the end where Thorin is asking for Bilbo right before he dies, and they have that like heart to heart. But again, that like I feel like I interpreted that more as a friendship thing. But in the movie, dude, in the movie, it felt like there was a lot more going on there. And I mean, Bilbo goes back to the Shire and lives as a bachelor for the rest of his life. He's unmarried. He has no children. Adopts his orphaned nephew. I mean, come on. That's a gay man if I ever seen one. Anyway, that's besides the point. The other thing is I liked the clip that I already inserted it, the clip with Galadriel fighting off and like banishing Sauron. If that happens in Lord of the Rings, do not say anything. Do not, because I already just started Fellowship of the Ring. I started reading it the other day. So don't say nothing about it. But if it's in the Silmarillion, or if this is just context that I'm supposed to get from another source outside of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, then you can go ahead and spoil that in the comments for me, because I don't, is she a god? Like, what was that whole like darkness situation going on? Like what was that? Is she like a dark elf or something? Like I didn't understand. It was cool, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed watching it. I think Cate Blanchett nailed the scene, right? But like I also don't understand what that was all about. The other thing is like I need a map. I need to look at a map, because we're talking, you know, who is Angmar, by the way? Is that in the Silmarillion? So it was that Sauron's name when he was human? Was Sauron ever human? I don't know. But yeah, there was just a lot going on that I was like very lost about, because then they're talking about some Gondor and Mordor. I know what that is, right? That's where he ends up. That's the Mount, you know, Mount Doom and all that. But yeah, I don't know. The movie, it was like the parts that I enjoyed the most about it was all of the new lore that was being presented to me as somebody who doesn't know shit about the Middle Earth universe outside of whatever I had read in The Hobbit. So those were the parts of the movie that I actually really liked watching. Everything else, all of the fight scenes, like it was just, you know, I don't know, it was just really unfortunate to watch. The CGI ruined it. I mean, when Thorin and Dwalin and Philly and Killy are like riding those rams up the mountain, like it just looked ridiculous. It looked ridiculous. Did I hate the movies? No. Okay, definitely not. Were they faithful adaptations? I would say they tried to be in the beginning, and then it just kind of fell off as the more we watched. Which is, again, it is what it is. They're movies. They're not always going to be faithful adaptations. I get that. It's just we spent a lot of time on orcs, and I wish that we hadn't. Bjorn, I feel like he was so crucial in the book that like to see him just kind of written off and we barely spend any time with him at all. I didn't like that either. I didn't like the characterization of his character in the movies. I felt like he was a lot more interesting and dynamic in the book. And yeah, I mean, those are my closing thoughts. Will I ever watch these movies again? Probably. I mean, I own them on fucking Blu-ray and they're the extended versions. Like I spent a lot of money on that, okay? I'm going to watch them again at some point, but I can't say I'm going to be doing that anytime soon. I'm sorry to the fandom for not enjoying the movies. I like, you could tell the way that I was talking about doing this at the beginning of the week, because I've been filming for a week, by the way. Anyway, the way I was talking about it in the beginning of the week, I was so excited. I really thought I was going to love the book. I thought I was going to love these movies, and I thought I was going to be on my merry fucking way about it. But unfortunately, loved the book. The movies had their issues. Were they entertaining? Yeah, okay, sure. In the sense that I feel like I remember liking them a lot more back when I hadn't read the book. And I think that seems to be the case a lot of the time with adaptations, is like it's hard to ever beat the book, man. It really is. It rings true. Anyway, so if you have made it this far in the video, thank you. Okay? Because I'm tired of talking about it. I feel like people probably tuned out a long fucking time ago, and that's fine, because honestly, this video is long as hell. I've been editing it all week and it's like already we're at an hour. So who God knows how long this is gonna end up being. But if you've made it this far, thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm going to go ahead and let you tell me what you think I should do, because I am reading Lord of the Rings. Would you prefer one video where I read all 3 books and then watch all 3 movies? Or would you prefer that I read the Fellowship of the Ring, watch the movie, read the Two Towers, watch the movie, and read, I forget the name of the third one right now. Sorry, the coffee hasn't kicked in yet. But would you prefer that I just do the trilogy, 1 book, 1 movie at a time? Or should I read the entire trilogy, watch all 3 movies, and make that one video? I will say that if we go with the second option, it's going to take me a while to do that. Probably I won't have that video ready for at least a couple weeks, because I'm a slow reader, and also, actually, no, that's really just the only reason. So you let me know what I should do in the comments. I'm leaning towards doing them one at a time, but you tell me what you would like to watch. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to this channel over the last few days, over the course of the last week after my other video kind of popped off. I was not expecting it to do that. I know everybody says that, but like, and it's not like I got like a million views or anything, but like for me, my channel is used to seeing maybe like 20 views, 50 views at most. So the fact that I'm at 2,500 or something like that is it's crazy. So yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your support. I'm glad to have you here. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.